what do you make of where India finds itself after this brief, very intense military escalation? The trigger was obviously the terrible Pahalgam attack. India had every right to respond. The response was Operation Sindoor, which was meant to ensure justice to the victims and, of course, to ensure that there are no future attacks. But when you look at what happened subsequently, Pakistan's retaliation, America openly saying they mediated this truce, have any of those objectives been actually achieved?
Well, I think if you look at the initial objectives of the May 7th strike, it was very clearly not meant to be seen as the opening salvo in a protracted war.
This is Operation Sindoor.
To settle.
Yes.
Operation Sindoor was not about trying to settle any larger issues with Pakistan.
Yes.
It was purely a retaliation for Pahalgam. The message is you just cannot send terrorists across the border to kill our innocent civilians and go away with impunity. We will hit you. See, after Uri,
yes,
you cross the LOC. After Pulwama, you cross the IB, the international border, and hit Balakot. After this, you went into the heartland of Punjab. You hit Bahawalpur and Muridke, but you did so in a very carefully calculated, precise manner. I'm told by experts that they even targeted individual buildings within the LET complex and the Hizbul and the Jaish-e-Mohammed complex.
Right.
So it was an incredibly well done strike that sent this message. Now, if the Pakistanis had had the brains at that point to let it be, or to have done some token shelling across the border and called it off, I think that would have been that, and India would never have wanted to take it farther, because India wasn't interested in a war.
Right.
What happened thereafter was the Pakistanis decided that they were going to double down on why they had done Pahalgam, which is partially also to internationalize Kashmir, get India, Pakistan back on the global agenda, get the world concerned about their issues and so on. And so they decided, first of all, they pleaded innocence. We didn't do this. The Indians are attacking us without cause.
Yes.
And then they started hitting back very hard. As you know, Poonch, we lost 22 people's lives. And on top of that, we've had 59 hospitalized with grave injuries. So it's not a small matter. Our civilians have suffered terribly.
And across the entire international border.
All the damages done to cars, buildings, etc. So many places, from going back to sort of Rajouri and Jammu and so on, all the way right down to Rajasthan.
Yes.
So it's really not been good. India has given back as good as it got. And as far as I'm concerned, we won't know the full details until they emerge gradually from both sides. But India seems to have also exacted some pretty significant damage, including to some of the most important Pakistani airfields.
Right.
So this has been solid stuff. But that's not part of the core message. The core message was to deliver the handlers of the terrorists. That message has been delivered. I still hope that now that we've identified by name 3 of the 4 killers, that we will go after them individually and bring them to justice.
So I want to ask
that remains to be done.
Right.
But otherwise, there's no point in going on just shelling and killing people.
No, of course. Let me unpack many of the things you said one by one. Let's start with Operation Sindoor, which you said was to send a message to the terrorists. Now, by India...
And their handlers.
Now, by the Indians' own admission, that the targets were these, as you mentioned, the various madrasas and installations of the Jaish and the Lashkar-e-Toiba. The fact is that these attacks were carried out late at night. It was unlikely that these were heavily peopled at the time.
That's exactly why.
We
didn't want civilians around that. Muridke and Bahawalpur are thickly populated towns. We chose a time when there would not be civilians on the streets.
Civilians, of course. But if you look at it in terms of sending the terrorists a message, because when the details provided by the army suggested that many of these were installations which were used to launch terror attacks, some going back decades. Which raises the question, though, about the effectiveness, because it's still not clear whether we actually took out any terrorists, their leaders and so on and so forth. Pakistan says some 30-odd people were killed. They were all civilians. Even if one were to discount all of it, or we don't have to take all of it at face value. There is this question, which has been raised, by the way, by several strategic experts as well, that if you are going after this kind of makeshift infrastructure, camps, etc., which may have been abandoned or evacuated, anticipating an Indian attack.
Dismantling the terrorist infrastructure.
What is the effectiveness then?
You're dismantling the infrastructure from which the terrorists have come, where the terrorists are trained, where they're guided, where they're instructed, armed, equipped, financed. So hitting that infrastructure sends a powerful message in itself. It's like saying, okay, so you didn't want to kill a whole lot of people, but you definitely wanted to destroy the building from which they work. That's what you've gone and done. Now that I believe we've done effectively. Secondly,
they could turn around and say we'll just create a whole new set of buildings and infrastructure.
So they'll build a new building. I'm not suggesting we've completely eliminated LET or JAM. No question about that. They are still there.
Okay.
But the fact is, they haven't killed every civilian in India either. I mean, they've killed 26 people. We gave them a fitting riposte.